Hey everybody, welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm DK. This is Ask Devan Anything. We do this every Thursday. Make sure you're subscribed so you can get the notifications, so you can hang out with me. You're hanging out with me in my home right now, so welcome. And this one is gonna be for all of my entrepreneurs, all my career people, all my business people out there. Got really like three sides of like who I am naturally and what I like to talk about, and it's really health and business and family. And between those three buckets of my life, I am complete. And so I am naturally an entrepreneur, I think, if there's such thing as a natural entrepreneur. When I was a kid, my first business ever, I think I was, 10 or 12 years old. I started a little snow shoveling franchise in Michigan, and I'd have all my buddies go out and actually do the work, but I would be the one making the sales, knocking on the door, and I didn't know it at the time, but that was my first franchise. And then my second venture, I can remember in junior high, I was like in love with Morgan, and she was on, I would watch all of her basketball games, and she knew it at the time. You guys have seen, if you've been following me, the letter that I wrote in 8th grade that was proclaiming my love for her, and I think it said, "I'm gonna marry you," in there somewhere. And so of course I was at her junior high girls basketball games, and I would listen to the way that the junior high girls, all of our friends, would talk about the music, and then I would go home and I would burn CDs with that music on it, and I would create the warm-up playlists, right? And I would be like the one that was spinning the warm-up playlists, seeing what they were bopping to, seeing what they were vibing to, and then I would go up and I would have extra copies, and I was like, hey, if you like the warm-up music, I saw you guys dancing. I was slinging CDs for $2-3 a pop. I can't say there was a fixed price. I was just making negotiations, doing deals, and so I've kind of always had it in my blood. I think largely out of maybe some DNA and just natural talent, but also then the necessity, you know, growing up in an environment where my family was on welfare and we were living paycheck to paycheck. My dad was an odd-end job electrician, worked in and out of different companies. My mom, an evening waitress, bartender for most of her life. And so we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. And so I had an affinity for it, I think, as well, out of necessity. And so I've always been into business. I've always been an entrepreneur, and then I kind of changed paths and I just focused on baseball and put all of that energy into it, actually to get some money to go to college, and so I could have a car and have transportation. I started a car flipping business when I was 16. I found out about eBay, and I would go to my brother's house, Jason, who now owns Portage, Michigan for us at Burn Bootcamp. Him and his wife Aubrey, shout out to them, were a huge help for me growing up, like my support system when things would go south. And if you've followed me for any amount of time, you know how south they might go. That's a story for another day. But I would sit there and just play on eBay. I didn't even really start selling things until I started selling cars. So I worked as an apprentice with my dad, and I would go on jobs with him, and he would pay me to be what he called his gopher, like go for this, go for that, go get me stuff. And so I'd be running back and forth to the truck, be up on the roofs. He would do roofing jobs with my uncles. I'd be on the roofs. I'd have one of those pitchforks, just working hard on the roof, these A-frame roofs, popping nails out of the roof, ripping off tar paper, carrying 80-pound shingles, up giant ladders, and just really learning manual labor. I mean, you talk about some hard work. Roofing is one of the hardest jobs I think any human being can have, and not to mention, I saw both my uncles who were hired me at different points in times with their individual roofing businesses. I saw both of them fall off the roof at one point in time, and so while I was doing that, I was also flipping cars, and it was just a crazy experience for me. I would actually go meet people at the Detroit Metro Airport, because Battle Creek is about 2.5 hours, about 2 hours away. And I would drive and meet people from out of state over there, and I would drop them off the car, and I had my buddy Kip come with me, and then he would drive me back. And I sold 3 or 4 cars on eBay, just kind of doing like some arbitrage, right? Like finding a really good deal on a car, knowing that if I just added some new tires to it really quickly, that I could triple the value, and then I would go sell it right away on eBay. And the last flip that I did was I went from like this 1984 Ford Probe and it was super broken. You know the frog-eyed lenses, I think that's what they're called, where they would flip up, or the flip lights, right, on the front of the car. It was super sleek, and they would like kind of flip up, and that was the cool, badass thing to do, I guess, in like the 80s. Well, I'm in like the 2000s, you know, like rocking this car, and only one of them works, just one. And so I'm having to like, you know, the light would shine, but the automatic flipper didn't work, and so I'd have to go in there with a screwdriver and like drive it up, and I'd have to, I kid you guys not, I'd have to touch the wires together to start my car. I'd put the key in, turn the key, and then touch the wires together, and anybody would when it would go, and it's middle of winter, right? And this car had not been well upkept, but I was proud of it. This was after my very first car, which, if you know my story, you know that I went to a baseball tournament when I was 16 years old. Had worked my butt off to go to a car auction and buy a Pontiac Grand Am, and then I came back from the baseball tournament, and my mom had left town, had taken my car, I think, as and sold it as moving money, and her and my brother just left. They just, you know, abandoned basically me, myself, and my older brother and our family. And so I had this like thing for cars because of that. I mean, that devastated me, right? Like, to me, growing up in a rough place, the idea of buying my own vehicle. My dad did match me, which I was super grateful for. So he matched me, and we went and spent like $2,500 on this Pontiac Grand Am. So proud of it. And I think because partly I worked for it myself, but secondly, like, it was a representation of freedom and liberation to me to be able to like come and go as I please. I can remember at like 14, 15, I could not wait to just be able to go when shit hit the fan. And so anyhow, that's the purpose. Like, I was getting a car the day I turned 16. I did all the stuff myself, you know, and really worked hard for it. So that moment was devastating to me when my mom had left and used my car for apparently moving money or living money or whatever it was for. It was gone. And so then the 1984 Ford Probe was the first one that I bought when I got back, when like I was trying to get back to it. And so then from there is when I started flipping, right? And flipped the 84 Ford Probe for another, like, barely made any money on the Pontiac Grand Am. And it was by far like the next Pontiac Grand Am. And it was like by far the hardest one I had done. Well, then I traded out some wheels on the Pontiac Grand Am, put some 20s on it. And if you're from Battle Creek, Michigan, Pontiac with 20s, tinted windows, all black, it's gonna sell. And knew my marketplace, and I went out and I sold that, and I made a couple grand on that flip, and that's what really jump started the whole thing. So I ended up, Morgan and I, like, after all this story, all the flips in between, there's 2 or 3 in between, Morgan and I went to Columbus, Ohio. We drove down to Columbus, Ohio to a Ford dealership who had a killer deal on a Ford Escape, which, by the way, ended up being the same car that Kellogg's gave Morgan as a part of her job, which was ironic. But we went down, we bought it, we came back, I sold it immediately, $2,500. Now I had enough money to go buy my brother's, which he gave me a deal, and I'm grateful for him for this. He gave me a deal on his Mustang, his 2005 Ford Mustang, green, like car of my dreams at the time. I bought that, and I had like $5 grand left over to take with me to college, and that was like my first entry into entrepreneurship. And then I had that bug, but then I turned all of my focus and attention toward baseball. I was so grateful that Central Michigan gave me an opportunity to play for them and to pitch for the Chippewas. And so I was going to pour all of myself into that, right? And so if anybody knows me, then you know that if I do something, I'm going all out. I'm fully dedicated. I'm fully committed. I'm careful about what I dive into, but I'm very dedicated once I do so. And so I forgot about making money, really, or like I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was at the time, honestly. I was just doing it, like I said, out of necessity, and I think just a little natural talent and fun. I had fun with it. So, you know, then I go play baseball and play, 6 years, college and professional baseball. And I get out and I get the itch immediately back. And so this is when I really start my journey, my journey into entrepreneurship, development, And I read every book on the planet, right? So this is a very long introduction to give you a little bit of background for me to share with you that from the moment I was released from the Giants, I picked up this affinity for entrepreneurship again. And the way that I've developed myself personally is by reading books, is by learning from other people, standing on the shoulders of those that have come before me. And to do so, you need openness, you need removal of ego, you need humility, you need a little bit of pity for yourself, right? To admit that there's things that you don't know, that just the most simple concepts are foreign to you. And growing up in the environment that I grew up in, there wasn't a culture of, the culture, there was no personal development culture. There was no growth mindset. It was a very fixed mindset. Why is the world doing these things to me mindset, a victim mentality, and that victim mentality manifests itself in some pretty violent ways. And I watched my father grow up abusing alcohol, and his women and all the men in my life were in and out of jail or prison. And so these are the things that I'm looking at and observing every day and like projecting how I'm supposed to be. Baseball broke all of that for me and showed me a world that was with more possibilities beyond where I was, but I didn't have any prerequisite knowledge going into starting Burn Boot Camp or being an entrepreneur for real as an adult with bills and responsibilities and at the time a girlfriend who was definitely going to be my fiance and my future wife. I dove headfirst into books, and I read every book you could possibly read. I watched every YouTube video you could possibly watch. Tony Robbins was my first. I mean, there was probably a year and a half where all I would do from 8 p.m. to midnight every single night was read Tony Robbins material, listen to it, but I wouldn't just listen to it or watch it. I would study it, right? I would actually have like I'm in a classroom, like I'm learning, like I'm getting lectured to. Like I paid $5,000 to hear these messages. I'm sitting down and I'm hanging on every word because I was so hungry for that mentorship, and I knew it was there. I just didn't know really where to find it. And then really what Tony Robbins helped me do was give me a foundational mindset, a foundational set of beliefs and philosophy to work from. And then he would always give credit to all of the people that always helped him along the way get to where he was at. And through that thread, I was listening and hearing names, and I would go off and I would then go listen to those people's body of work. And I continue to do that over and over and over and over. And I've been reading and listening and watching every day for at least an hour, most times like 3 hours. Every single day, between books, between videos. I would say it's like 60% video, probably 20% listen, 20% books, if I'm being honest with you. I like visuals. I like to hear things. I like for people to speak in their context too. If you're speaking in a book context, it's a book context. But if you're watching a seminar and you got this guy, Tony Robbins, he's big as life, and he's just like, you can see his emotion, you can feel it. I like to learn dimensionally like that. And so from that moment forward, I delve into every book on the planet pretty much that had anything to do with business and communication and marketing and branding, and Seth Godin and Gary Vaynerchuk and Sarah Blakely, you name it. I've absorbed a lot of content. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I got a question, what have you been reading lately? Okay, what have you been reading lately? And I'll tell you that almost the first decade, 10 years of my personal development journey, which started when I was 23 years old, almost the first 10 years of that to 33, I'm 35 now, was purely getting the baseline information of like the 1% of the world that I actually cared about, that I already had some natural talent in. And all of these books that people write, what I started noticing is they had commonalities. Like it was different perspectives from everybody that was writing it, but they were in essence, in abstract, saying the exact same thing. And I noticed patterns over and over and over. And I figured success leaves clues. And if all of these people are writing about the same things and they're all successful, and I'm reading their material or I'm listening or watching their material, then they must be doing something right. And I must have an open mind, removal of ego, ultimate humility, and stepping into the mindset that it's okay that I don't know what I don't know. And from that moment forward, when I opened my heart and I opened my mind to that, I began developing my character, my skills, my talent at such a rapid level. And I wish that everybody could experience what I've experienced with the way that I've approached going from basically having no background at all, no principles, if I'm being honest with you, no mindset, no belief structure. I never had family principles. I never had any type of structure around what life was supposed to be and how you were supposed to handle the obstacles and the challenges that came your way and how you're supposed to think. And so it was really, I was a clean slate. And you know what I always thank baseball for, and why I'll always be super grateful to the San Francisco Giants and the Central Michigan Chippewas, and I will never be bitter because I thought I should have got more playing time, or I thought the coach used me the wrong way, or I was bitter because I got released from the Giants at the person that had to let me go that day. No, I'm so grateful for them because what they offered to me was a structure that I never had before. I didn't know it at the time, but they were creating an environment, a team structure for me where I could absorb through action the principles that make teams work and championship teams click and the individuals on that team. And it was so analogous to life in general. And so that structure was like the best thing possible for me because I learned it all before I actually mentally could conceive of it all. It was part of my body before it was part of my mind. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just on autopilot doing these things and emulating champions that came before me because I'm so darn competitive. So at the end of the day, I walked into my personal development journey with this huge body of knowledge that I was unaware of how to act, how to behave in a championship culture. And I was just set up for success. And then I read all the books. I start to put the language together. And then through my own interpretation of that collective body of language, then now I really turn my attention and direction toward reading how individual people have executed on this body of information that everybody seems to write about and that all successful people seem to share in common. And so my most recent one that I wanted to just share with you guys quickly was the Sam Walton book, right? And the reason I wanted to share the Sam Walton book, for those of you that don't know Sam Walton, he one of the greatest, in my opinion, entrepreneurs of all time, and he's the founder of Walmart. Most people don't know this because a lot of tech companies get a big rap this day and a lot of PR, rightfully so, because they've grown very rapidly, like companies like Amazon and Apple, etc. But just so you know, for all my business heads out there, in case you're wondering, Walmart is by far the biggest company on the planet to this day, $589 billion last year. And Apple is 200 billion short of that. Google's 200 billion short of that, almost 50. Walmart is like 50% bigger than these guys, 100% bigger than these guys, right? So people don't realize that because Walmart's just been around for so long and tech companies are hot. Well, my point being is that the reason I love the Sam Walton book, and I want to share some of the takeaways from that, is because he has timeless principles. The way that he grew his company is timeless. There are universal truths, put it this way, there are universal truths that he bet on, right, that would transcend generations and would allow his business to thrive in any environment because of the way that he went about it, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is just break that down a little bit and explain my narrative after reading the book and why I kind of took these things away. So it's called what is it called? Made in America by Sam Walton, okay? And he made this when he knew that he was terminally ill with cancer. And he knew that he was wanted to leave his legacy behind for his family, for his fans, for his employees. And this was a man of great character, great track record, small town guy out of Bentonville, Arkansas, who had big dreams and really never let anybody tell him otherwise. And so his goal number one, as I go through, let's see, I'm going to go pretty quickly. All right, I'm going to go pretty quickly, but there's 10 of these things that I have takeaways for, okay? So the first one is get better, not bigger. Get better, not bigger. And that means you're waking up every single day to improve something about the company. That's the way that I interpret it. When Sam Walton says, guys, we are here to get better, not bigger, that really means to me that you're taking care of your people. You're helping your people get better. And when you build people and you're in the business of building people, then those people will be in the business of building business, right? So I think that I don't think as an entrepreneur I'm building businesses. I don't see it that way. The way I see it is I build people and people build businesses. And so this is very important because one of the things that Sam had said in the book, he said, I never had a goal for how big we wanted to get. I had a goal for how much better I wanted to get. And what happened as a byproduct of that is we got bigger. We got bigger because there was no logical reason for us to stop doing what we were already doing that proved to be successful. Now, that's interesting, right? Because how many times do we put something in some superficial obstacle or some worry out in front of us that really slows us down? The key word he used in the book was, there was no logical reason for me to stop. We were so good and getting better that there was no logical reason to stop. And so, and then later he evolved his mindset and said, well, maybe we should have a future goal. But I didn't want it to be something where people thought it was an absolute. He said, I wanted it to be something that was a directional conversation that just gave them confidence in the direction the brand was going. And his very first goal that he shared with the company was that they wanted to do $1 billion in sales in their first 10 years. Now, so by year 10, do annualized $1 billion in sales. Now, Sam Walton was 44 when he started Walmart. Up until then, his entire career was spent with a franchise company, actually, Benjamin Franklin. And you've heard of the Benjamin Franklin brand before. It's still around today. And just other retailers as he was in the discount merchandising business. So he started Walmart when he was 44, right? So this tells me it's like, so many of us think that we're like 23, 22, 21, and life is over, and we don't quite know what we want to do yet, and we have all these ideas, all these ambitions. We want it right now. We want everything. We can't have everything. We wanted it yesterday, but we're not even old enough to know what yesterday really means yet. And before we're able to even get off of our feet as adults, we already feel like we lost. Right? Sam Walton started when he was 44, right? I got 9 years before he even started. And so reading books like Sam's really helps people like me, and I hope it helps people like you distill down just the reality of what success really is, and that it's not just this cookie cutter approach where you hear crypto billionaires, overnight, and like you feel like you have to keep up with them, right? So it's like shift responsibility is number 2. So for all of my business people out here, this is so huge. Shift responsibility is what he said. The way that I translate that is that you want to lead, manage, and hold accountable. So LMA. LMA is what we use internally at Burn Bootcamp when that stands for leadership, management, and accountability. And the reason that exists is so that we can shift responsibility or push responsibility down the organization to the front lines, push more responsibility down, more ownership down, more decision-making power down to the front lines, give them more information, more transparency, more knowledge, more tools, more resources to do their jobs really well, with the theory that nobody wants to suck at their job. Everybody wants to be great at what they do. Not everybody wants to be the greatest at something, at a vertical of life, but everybody wants to be great at what they do, right? Whether it's a little part-time job or something career-oriented, or if you have your own business. So shifting responsibilities was really a main theme of his book, that he would always ask the question, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? I really trust you on this one, what do you think? And the nature of that question creates space for people to tell you what they think. And oftentimes what they think is oftentimes what you think, and your positive affirmation on that by posing a question and giving them the space to answer, rather than just telling them what you think and what to do. That space not only gets us to the same outcome that we have in our heads as leaders, but that's what we mean by buy-in, right? It gets the buy-in of the people that we are leading with. Okay, not the people that we're leading, it's the people that we're leading with. We have to get buy-in from them. The way we do that, ask them a question, give them space, right? And let them tell you what they think. And a lot of times, you'll find there's a coaching opportunity there if you're not aligned in what you think, and there's a collaboration effort that happens. So that's how we're shifting responsibility every day, and people love to have ownership and feel like they have accountability in their lives and that they have a purpose. And one way most people like to do that is by measuring it, like by having a number. So in our organization, shift responsibility means you have a measurable, that every person, every seat in the organization has something that they're getting measured by. And that's really important as well. Number 3, I love this one. This is my favorite one. When he said this in the book, this was like him and I connecting on like an entrepreneur to entrepreneur level, like insane, crazy, visionary level. Like I empathize with Sam a lot on what he went through, and I really connected with this book. This one, number 3, is called Fly Under the Radar. This guy is insane, by the way. You know what his strategy was for developing his real estate before we had fancy real estate mapping software? He went and got his pilot's license. He bought a little prop jet once he started to become pretty decently successful. One of his first main investments in some technology platform was a prop jet. A little shooter, yeah, like barely putts up and gets up in the sky. He would fly over the southeast region in Arkansas and surrounding states. He would look at plots of land where developments were going up, and he would look at plots of land where he could put Walmarts. And then he would also fly over his competitors. Target was open at the time. I forget the other names. There's a few other like regional chain stores that were open at the time that he describes in the book. He'd fly over and he would compare cars in his parking lot to cars in Target's parking lot to new real estate acquisition. And literally, number 3, fly under the radar. This guy was growing so uniquely, so quickly because of the strategy that he had. Right? Nobody else was doing that at the time. Nobody's bold enough to buy a plane and go scale your operations better than everybody else, because you literally have the bird's eye view and you can see everything else that you can see everything that no one else has. There's no demographic reports back then, or maybe some census reporting. I'm not sure exactly, but the book didn't mention any of it. But anyways, he goes, because I flew under the radar with my plane for so long, he goes, by the time that people actually caught on to what Walmart was, we were already too big for any of them to catch. So he goes, fly under the radar for long enough. By the time they notice you and notice what you're doing and begin to emulate you, because they will, you're so far ahead that doesn't matter, and it's actually flattering. And so for me, that's exactly my mindset in this industry today. Like real time with me is to fly under the radar. We're not in the lexicon yet. We're a family-owned company, and to be honest with everybody, I think this would be valuable for people who are business owners. If you're not owned by the institutions or the banks, then you don't have people that really care necessarily outside of the people that are in the brand. Like obviously, headquarters, our amazing team, our franchise partners, they're amazing teams, our members, they're amazing families. Like, there's like 100, but if you added us all up, I mean, we're like 150 deep at this point, right? It's 150,000, by the way. And that collective energy really attracts growth to the business. But people outside of it, they don't care. They don't have their money or emotions or any resources tied up in the business. And so we get to fly under the radar because of that reason. When I'm just doing research in the industry, Burn Bootcamp's not even included in the top 10, even though if you looked up the statistics and did your homework, okay, we're in the top 5 on everything in the boutique fitness space. So I love that because nobody can see that yet, but I can see everybody else and I know it. And I know that the value of the company is so great, and us being able to hold on to that for so long, just on the back and the strength of our connection with our franchise partners and the relationship and the trust that we all have built together. That's the strength of our brand, not some private equity backer or some bank backer. So by the time some of that stuff does start to happen as we go to the next level in the organization, it's the culture is going to be so solidified that there's no turning it around. And especially when I'm sitting in this seat right here for the remainder of my future foresight, I'm excited about the prospects that we have to do some of the things in fitness franchising and for the health and fitness world that Sam Walton was able to do for the merchandising world. I mean, think about it. People don't think about it this way, and I didn't either before I read the book. Think about Walmart, okay, and their value proposition, right? They want to be the cheapest price. They want to put the most money in your pockets possible for the same products, for the same outcome. And I didn't really understand how Walmart could help communities outside of just employing a lot of people when they first came in, until Sam Walton in his book put it like this: by saving everyone $1 on everything they buy all the time, I'm giving millions and billions of dollars back to my community to go out and do the things that they love, like vacation and spend time with their family. And his perspective on that just opened up my eyes to say that, taking care of your people first and having that culture and having the consumer or the member or the customer as top of mind, almost sole focus, right? Like that everybody on the teams internally are focused on that member experience, that customer experience. Wow, things start to happen magically in the community, even if you're just selling products, because you're doing it for the benefit of the consumer. Okay. These ones are going to go quicker. Those are my favorite 3, but I wanted to give you 7 more just to give you some nuggets to chew on, okay? So all of my business people out there, all right, here we go. This one's for you. Said, be the headhunter. Okay, he would go fly to conferences all over the place and set up relationships with people that would eventually work for him. And he was forecasting that 5 years in advance. And he would go out specifically to different industry conferences to meet specific people. He was his own recruiter. Be your own recruiter. Don't sit back. Don't wait for talent. Your coaching ability is only as good as the 5 players that you put on the floor. So make sure that you're recruiting those players, and also making sure that bench players, those role players on your team, that they are the most talented, most passionate role players that you can have. Number 5, never lose control. Never lose control. Basically saying, hang on to your reputation. Your reputation is everything. Always do what you say you're going to do, even and especially when you don't feel like doing it. And hang on to control. Don't give up your power. Okay, remain in the driver's seat. How do you do that in a career setting? You bring more value than anybody else can to the founders of that company. That's how you do that. Bring more value than anybody else can. Solve more problems. Be solution oriented. Be so good that they cannot ignore you, and you will be what Seth Godin calls actually a linchpin. The book, The Linchpin, is a great book, a great read for those of you who are on your career path. Being a number 3, being a number 20, which, by the way, is like remarkable to be in a role like a Draymond Green for the Golden State Warriors, where all you do is rebound and you make Steph Curry look like he's the best player on the planet, and you set him up for screens, and you know that your role and your job is to support somebody else, and you just are naturally a servant. Not everybody can be the entrepreneur. Not everybody wants to be, trust me, when you're sitting in this seat. But those that do it, right, need you, or they are nothing. And that's very important, and that's what he means by lose control. Number 6, be relentlessly curious, always asking questions. Me and Sam share this together. He would go out almost on a weekly basis to a different Walmart store, and he would go in and he would just spend time with his people, asking them questions, digging in. He also would go to competitors and do the same thing. Walk into a Target and ask their people, what are you doing? How are you doing it? How's business? And at Burn Bootcamp, far before I ever read this book, that's just naturally what my gifting is to be down on the floating floor with our members, sweating it out with them, feeling what they feel. I am a member. My family are avid members of Burn Bootcamp. My children love Child Watch the same way that yours do, and Morgan and I have a love-hate relationship with the gym the same way that you do, and we bond over it the same way that you do. And so me being in our gyms is so important for me, and it's not just important, it's the most important thing to make sure that this company, as we scale, continues to get better, not bigger. Back to number 1. Okay, number 7 is the 90-10 rule. Okay, that means that 90% of business is duplicatable and 10% needs custom creativity to best serve the community. He used to think that all Walmarts had to be exactly the same. That didn't work in some coastal regions, okay, where there was a lot of need for beach gear and surf gear and needs for people for outdoors, products and etc. So those coastal regions weren't as profitable as some of the more southeast inland regions because he wasn't allowing that 10% of creativity to adapt. When I read Howard Schultz Onward as well and all of his material, another hero icon of mine, same ideology. Every Starbucks has a menu, right? Every Walmart has a product offering. Every Burn Bootcamp has a protocol. But what makes us scalable, what makes us unique, what makes us different, what makes it feel like home, even though it's a big brand, is that Walmart offers surfing products and beach products, in the Charleston, South Carolina Walmart, right? The Starbucks that's right next door to the Burn Bootcamp has the menu, but they know Devan, from the trainer from next door, is gonna come over, and every day, this guy's a crazy fitness guy that loves Burn Bootcamp. We're gonna make him a blue spirulina protein smoothie with a little iced coffee in it, and we're gonna customize that for him because he's our customer. We're his baristas. We're taking care of his custom needs. And that's the same exact thing that our trainers do at every location, every camp, every day with you all. We roll out the baseline protocol, and their unique skill, talent, and ability kicks into play to not only explain that and articulate that to you, but to treat each one of you as the individual that you really are and mod up and mod down off that baseline so that you get a custom workout working around any ailments that you might have, focusing on, whether you want to grow your muscle, you want more endurance, you want, more conditioning, you want more strength, whatever it might be. Hey, do you want to be challenged? Are you really somebody that wants to do something they've never done before every day? Are you that killer in the gym, or are you one of the people that, hey, might need a day, of the week where, it's, you're just keeping it at baseline, right? And you're maintaining, and you're not looking to do anything like super crazy, right? So we customize this and this approach, not out of scale, not out of wanting to systemize and make every single trainer and every single member interaction the same. We do it out of a love for our members. At Burn Bootcamp, at Walmart, and at Starbucks, none of those companies fall in love with their business model. They fall in love with the member, the customer, the consumer that they serve. And that person always comes first. 4:30 a.m. wake-up call, number 8. Get up. Sleep faster. Life is short. You don't need 8 hours. That's what Sam is saying. I tend to agree. If you do think you need 8 hours, maybe try some nutrition changes, some hydration changes. If you do need 9 hours or 10 hours, maybe that's a different issue, okay? Like, we can function 6 to 8 hours is ideal, okay? If you're an 8-hour person, see if you can push it to 6. Okay, if you're a 5-hour person, get some sleep, all right? Get some sleep. If you're a 4-hour person, get some sleep. Get your 6. You need your 6. But if you're 8 and you haven't pushed to 6, give that a shot. If you're 9, come on, get it in my range and control that part of your life. Have discipline in that part of your life and try not to talk yourself into some biological nonsense that you need more than every human has been proven to need on the planet, okay? Whether you believe that or not, I don't really care. That's what I believe. I believe that you need that. That's what the research shows, is that you need that. If you feel like you need more, that's your own truth, fine, by all means. But if you're not reaching the goals in your life because you're sleeping too much, well, then you're going to have to make a sacrifice on that and decide what's really most important for you. And number 9 would be the last one would be use mergers to expand. Right? If you're a business person, you want to expand quickly, they used a merger. I've never done that, never used a merger, but you could do that potentially. Maybe that's something we explore in the future. And then last but not least, innovate within the core. Don't change who you are, the essence of who you are. Don't negotiate with the soul of your family or the soul of your company. What got you to where you are at right now, that one thing that you have to hold on to, that you can't let go of. For us, that's the empowerment of women. Empowerment of women. That's always going to be at the very core, the nucleus of our brand. And around that nucleus, that core identity of who we are, we're innovating for that person. Okay, we're in love with that person, their needs, and we're always going to direct our innovation toward that person. And then my second person I really care about as I innovate within the core is our franchise partners and the stakeholders of our organization, the people in my team that own the brand, our people that own the brand, and everybody that's responsible for executing on a daily basis. Always looking at that member love through their lens and making sure that for a franchise partner that their profitability is the number one thing on our mind, because the more resources they have, the more they're able to serve the community, and the more they're able to grow the transformations that are happening left and right in all of our communities. And so this was the 10 takeaways from my book, Made in America by Sam Walton. Highly recommend that you read it. I thought it was a really well-written book, and not that I do book reviews or whatever. I guess this kind of turned into a book review, but I just really enjoyed it a lot. And I think that if you're an entrepreneur, especially somebody that does have a brick and mortar type business, that you're able to go at least know that resource is out there. I learned so much from it. And this is how I'm growing nowadays, is by taking all the things that I've learned in the first decade of my career, executing, right, on a daily basis. That's be honest, 98% of my day is executing on what I'm currently trying to do. But then that time that I reserve for personal development is I'm trying to get new, fresh perspective on people that I admire, people that I look up to, people that have great core value, that have great track record, that have built something that other people revere as part of their identity. Starbucks, Walmart, Target, Apple, Burn Boot Camp. That's my goal for this brand. And will we ever get there? I think there's a small possibility. And if there's a small possibility, then I'm going to dedicate my career, my life, my energy, my effort towards that small possibility. I'm going to put 100% of what I do into that small possibility. And if I emulate the greats that came before me and let their experiences speed up my development, if I can take what they learned in 50 years and learn it in 5 hours, I think I could be pretty dangerous. I think you can be too. And this is the power of personal development. This is the power of reading a lot of books, because you make observations and you get new perspective, and also the power of seeing through other people's lens and staying humble and always learning. Leadership mentality is a learning mentality. All right, y'all? This has been Ask Devan Anything. Remember, you can just shoot me questions anywhere on the internet, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm not really, TikTok's there. I don't check that a lot. It's just kind of there. LinkedIn works too. Because if I go on TikTok, I just get sucked into it. I don't get that way on Instagram. I use Instagram as like my main communication tool with everybody. So I won't see you on TikTok probably, but I will see you on Instagram. So that's probably the best platform. But make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you like these. I do this every Thursday. We have episodes every day of the week. We release every day, and we do that because I know that there are people out there listening to this every day and using it to absorb any little golden nuggets that you pick up as I'm sharing experiences or lecturing or whatever it may be, and just really grateful that you're here and giving me the opportunity to help you develop your mindset and do those mental reps. We're a fitness company, yes we are, but we're so much more than a gym. We are just a community of people just really trying to do life together and trying to help one another level up every day, myself included. These talks, I'm often just preaching at myself, and through the lens of what I've learned and helping you learn, you're helping me by helping me cement these things and be able to articulate these things in better and better ways that can serve more and more people. So thank you, appreciate you, and like we always do, 2 claps on 2, 1, 2.